Hi everybody, my name is Michael Campbell and I'm here at the 2017 CSPC, and with me today is Dr. Rima Wilkes, also professor at the University of British Columbia. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So tell me a little bit about what you do at UBC.
I am a sociology professor and I do research there, and I also teach.
What do you teach?
I teach Canadian Society, a third-year course, mandatory for all our students. And I also teach social movements, and sometimes I teach survey methods.
And which of those topics is of most interest to you?
I'm pretty passionate about Canadian society because it's just, people really expect it to be, it's because it's mandatory, they expect it to be super boring, because Canada's not seen as a very exciting country. And then they're surprised at how interesting Canada can be.
What are some interesting hidden gems that most people wouldn't know?
I think people are surprised, especially a lot of international students. We do have this reputation for being nice, and the contrast is always made with the United States, particularly in terms of race relations. And so we tend to think we're so much better than the US. And then when we really look into our history as well as our present, we see that there's a lot more contention here than a lot of people think.
Is there any specific examples you wanted to bring up?
Well, in the course, certainly we talk a lot about Indigenous rights and unceded territory, and particularly in the British Columbia context, a lot of people still don't really understand what unceded means. And essentially it means it's an occupation. And I don't think people tend to think about that's the Canadian situation. So that's sort of surprising to a lot of people.
Now, with this unceded aspect to it, is there sort of ideas towards resolving it? Or I know it's a big one.
I don't think, I guess one thing I think that would be really important is, it seems like governments always take an adversarial, like federal, provincial governments often take a very adversarial relationship approach, and it would be really great if they could not take an adversarial approach that often ends in the courts.
Okay. You also mentioned you do research. What kind of research do you do?
Sure. So I do research either in two areas. I study, I do a lot of quantitative research analyzing survey data, public opinion. Canadians' public opinion say what they think about immigration. And then the other thing I often study is media and how media represents particular issues in the Canadian context.
Do you see a difference in Canadian media compared to similar places like the United States and stuff?
I have yet to do that study. I will say that when I lived in the US for 1 year, one thing I did notice was, compared to living in Canada, in the US it seems like there's only 3 countries according to the media, which is the US, Afghanistan, and Israel, whereas I think in Canada there's a little bit more attention to other countries as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So you're here at the conference.
Yeah.
What brings you here?
Yeah, so I was invited by the Federation for Humanities and Social Sciences of Canada to be on a panel that is speaking about trust. I do research on public opinion and trust, and so I'm going to be speaking about trust on that panel.
Can you give us a little sneak peek about that?
Sure. So I will be speaking a little bit about why trust in science is important, because this is a conference on science, and I think everyone now has heard that trust is falling and trust in science is falling, or there's concern about that, and my message is going to be, we can focus on, as scientists, we can focus on why the problem is the public that doesn't trust us, or we can focus on how can we be more trustworthy. And that's my focus. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it was good to be here.
Why don't you tell the folks at home how they can find out more about you and any
Sure.
research?
Sure. So I can be reached. I'm on the Department of Sociology website at UBC. So if you just Google UBC Sociology and you scroll down, my last name is Wilkes, and I would look forward to hearing from anyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.